your heart's in your mouth and you're in tears, really. I was in tears when I left and that, but for the club to go drastically wrong, and you could see that it was never going to be right.
Oh, it's terrible. It really is. It's not. This is more like a family thing rather than what do you do on a Saturday? Watched your football for years and years and years, and suddenly you don't watch the football, and all your friends, everybody that you just don't see anymore.
We weren't allowed in the ground even, so we went from right up there to right down to the to League 5 leagues below.
When Salisbury City Football Club folded in 2014, it looked like it was finally the end for football in the city. Years of financial mismanagement have finally taken their toll, and it looked like for the second time in their history, Salisbury would be without a football club. But from the ashes rose a new club, a more sustainable one, looking to progress their way into the Football League. I'm Conor Godfrey, and this is the story of Salisbury Football Club. The Wiltshire City has had 3 major football clubs in its time. It all started with Salisbury City, and they played from 1905 onwards before dissolving in the Second World War. The club was then reformed in 1947, and for the second time the city had a club. They played at Victoria Park before moving here to the Raymond McEnhill Stadium in 1997. The early 2000s saw the football club nearly fold yet again before being saved by former Salisbury player Neville Beale. Despite positive results on and off the pitch, yet again in 2014, financial mismanagement had taken its toll and the club was sold by the board to 2 businessmen. It was supporter Mark Winter and Moroccan businessman Otel Tazar who took over and inherited the £150,000 worth of debt left behind. Tazar then signed Saudi Arabian Prince Khalid bin Badur Al Saud despite being under a transfer embargo, and soon things started to unravel further. After 2 months of unpaid wages, Salisbury City released a statement confirming their intentions to ban Tazar from the club and were looking to overturn his ownership. Soon the Moroccan was banned, but it was too late to save the club, who went bust in 2014.
But he thought he could do it, and it just didn't work. We were getting the same kind, but again, by overspending on players, trying to reach a target of a higher league, which we never did reach. Well, we did reach and then came back again because of that. We had all the big players with big money, and we just couldn't sustain it, and that was it.
Basically, we weren't getting our wages. Well, I wasn't getting my wages and that, and I just couldn't survive and that, and so I had to leave the club with regret. I've sort of like the first 3 years I had up at the club with Nick Holmes and Tommy, and that was absolutely fantastic. We got promoted straight into the conference, and that was really good. And then William took it over, and that's when the club come into difficulty. And then I left. The club got. Then it all went very badly wrong.
I'd like to sound quite streetwise. I've been all over America on my own. Through New York late at night and here and everywhere. He totally took everybody in. He promised me my wages would go up here, and he was showing us videos of him talking to Terry Venables in hotels in London. He was driving a brand new Porsche, and it turns out that he had hired this Porsche for a couple of days. We found out in the end he wasn't staying in hotels in Salisbury, where we pick him up sometimes. He was actually sleeping in the club, and once that became apparent, we called his bluff on it, and he had no money. So we were totally taken in. This is why these days it's this new ruling where you've got to check who's coming in is so good.
To try and understand what went so badly wrong for the club, I spoke to non-league journalist Cliff Pledge.
Simple answer is they didn't learn the lessons from the first time that they were in administration. But again, it's just running out of money, and to the disappointment of the supporters, because they were doing very well on the pitch, but they were in administration. They'd been demoted 2 leagues. They went straight back up to where they'd been before, very successful. And when the administration sort of was lifted, or the transfer embargo was lifted, I guess people thought this would be Salisbury heading maybe towards the Football League, but it never happened. They soon realised that they didn't have enough money to meet their commitments. They sold the club and then realised, in their opinion, that was a mistake, but they couldn't get ownership back from the person they'd sold it to. And there were no assurances that they could pay the players. So effectively, they had had to be put into administration for another time. And this time, the club had to start all over again from scratch. It's awful. And you really feel probably more for the supporters, but also for the volunteers, that's their life, really. That's their main hobby, their happiness. And yeah, when a town or a village sort of or a city loses its football team, it is awful.
Despite the disappointment of losing Salisbury City, it didn't take long for football to make a comeback here, and once again the Raymond McKenhill Stadium welcomed a football team back onto the pitch. The current club was founded in December of the same year with a consortium of 5, including current manager and former Portsmouth player Steve Claridge buying the remaining assets of Salisbury City.
So the new club walks the Wessex League, threatens to go straight up in the Southern One, doesn't do it in the playoffs, but does it the next season. And then they're in the Southern Prem now, where just being Salisbury and having that amount of supporters doesn't sort of guarantee you the money to dominate, because lots of clubs at that level have got famous names and similar attendances, whereas when they started out from scratch, obviously being a big club, they could get players and they could use that gate money to pay the players, but they've got to be a lot more sensible now so that they don't repeat what's happened in the past. And maybe that's supporters spoiled by 2 different spells in the National League, probably think Salisbury a big club and want to get back there. And the reality is the club have got to be sensible not to put themselves in jeopardy again and do it slowly.
Fans also played their part in the creation of the club.
When you see the nucleus of our supporters, like the Supporters Club, Stewie Canal and people like that, Susie Isles, Ray, Trevor, Bev and all them, they were down the Market Square getting all petitions signed and everything. I just had that feeling, and sort of like even though I wasn't involved with the club at that time and that, it was like a family, and you go down there, you try and do as much as you could to get the club back on its feet again.
The club played its first game on the 8th of August 2014 here at the Raymond McKenhill Stadium, and since then the club has found stability. Figures here at the club are now looking forward to the future.
We could go probably back where we were, hopefully the conference in a few years' time. Since Steve's been here, we've had 3 promotions, straight promotions, and 1 through a playoff. We made the FA Fars semi-final, lost here to Hereford, otherwise we'd have been at Wembley, which had been the biggest day in Salisbury's history, and that's since Salisbury City finished and Salisbury Football Club started.
I know we're in this league, but I think we can get out of this league, and I think National South would be our limit for a couple of seasons. If we got a really good investor, I could see us going again all the way. Thing is with this club, it goes on a high and a low. If we win 4 games or 3 games in the bounce, you'll get the gates go up and it will be a high, and then you lose 2 and it goes into a low. But there's the nucleus of all the fans is really positive.
We knew that there were people out there that were quite wanted to get it back, and they tried hard to get it back and eventually did succeed. But I must admit, there were times when I think all of us thought, don't know what's going to happen now. I think we can probably go 1-2 leagues higher. I don't think we can go above that unless somebody comes in with a lot of money and put those again, which we don't. As long as they come in with a lot of money and stay. But I think we're possibly, Conference South at the moment, and that's about our limit, I would say.
We wish Salisbury all the best for the rest of the season. I'm Conor Godfrey, here for Solent Sports News.